Test 1, 2, 3, 1.
Testing. Oh, there we go.
Whenever you're ready. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Joe McDonald. I serve as the president of this university, and I want to welcome you and thank you for coming out this evening to speak with our legislative candidates. And I want to thank our candidates for your willingness to serve. These are, I can assure you, these are not highly paid positions, nor are they ones with extraordinary power or prestige. These are positions that require selfless public service. And what they do is they serve this community, and we're very grateful for your willingness to do that. We live in a time of polarization, and the parties nationally are at least divided. But at a local level, we all are on the same page in that we are here to serve the people in Franklin County and Western Maine. And we share that interest with the university. The university has a similar mission. We serve our students, but we also serve this community as well. And we do it in a number of ways. We essentially are educating students in 5 areas. We educate students to become teachers, particularly in this region, but in the state. We also educate students in the area of health, which is a major issue in this community. Some of it is physical health with biology and nursing, but others are a mental health with our psychology program and our counseling program. We also educate a group of students to care about the environment, which is very important for all of us who live in the community, but it is also important for tourists that we seek to attract to this region. We educate some students in the area of business and public service, important for the economy of this region and for our government. And we also serve students in the area of the arts to really enrich our lives. And all of our efforts go towards improving our students' capacity to serve the community. This university provides about $35 million a year to the community. And then you can add on top of that a multiplier effect by having students live here and by having our employees live and work in the community. So we are also a beneficiary of the state, because about $15 million of that $35 million that we bring into this community comes from the appropriations of the state. So we are really joined with the legislature in serving this community. And so I look forward to working with those of you who are elected to see how this university can better serve the community. And I think there are many ways in which we can do that. So I look forward to that, and I welcome a dialogue with you after this election is all over. So thanks.
Well, welcome everybody. My name is JP Fortier, and I'm the Executive Director of the Franklin County Chamber, one of the co-hosts of tonight's events, along with UMF. Thank you, President McDonald. We're going to have candidates from Maine House District 74 and 75 and Senate District 5 tonight. We're going to give each of them 2 minutes to do an introduction, introduce themselves, and then we'll go into the question and answer segment. Each candidate will be asked 4 to 6 questions. I think on your sheets you have questions 7 and 9. Those are actually not supposed to be on there. Through the interest of time, we did try to bring it down to, I believe, 6 questions. And we also want to make time at the end to give each candidate 2 minutes to do a closing. So the rules of everybody gets 2 minutes. We'll have a yellow card will be presented at 30 seconds left, and then a red card will be displayed when they have 10 seconds. And then when the red card goes down, we ask them to stop. If they go any longer, the red card might get thrown at them, but who knows? This is not a gotcha event. We're not looking for any opportunities for mudslinging. We just want to hear what each candidate has with their positions and ideas. I'd appreciate it if everybody holds their applause until the end of the event. Tonight, Randy Govin couldn't make it. He had a family emergency, so he did provide answers to the questions that we had. So one of our moderators will read his answers at the appropriate time. I'd like to now introduce our 2 moderators tonight, UMF student Senate President Connor Malone and UMF student Carolyn Kinney.
Hello, folks. We're just going to get into it now and start off by giving the candidates just a quick opportunity to introduce themselves a little, just your name, district, whatnot. And we'll just go through starting with Russell Black.
Thank you. Could I interject? Do we have a flag that we can do a Pledge of Allegiance to?
I don't see one.
I'd be happy to provide that if you wanted to.
That would be great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Russell, excuse my interruption.
Well, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to see you all out here tonight. I am Russell Black from Wilton. I'm just an old farmer. Sorry. Can you hear me now? Good evening. Thank you for having us. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Russell Black, just an old farmer from Wilton, Maine. Born in Farmington, lived in Wilton my whole life. When I wasn't working as a building contractor or a logger or a farmer, I became active in many civic and nonprofit organizations. I have served on many of those local boards and became director of many of them. I've served the town of Wilton for 19 years on the planning board. I served 9 years as a Wilton selectman. I have served 8 years, 4 terms in the House of Representatives, and 6 years, 3 terms in the Senate. I am the ranking Republican member of both the IF&W, which is Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee, and ACF, which is Agricultural Conservation Forestry Committee, which both have huge oversight in a lot that what takes place in Franklin County. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie O'Donnell. I am the Democratic candidate for Senate District 5. I am a Franklin County resident. I was born in Portland, Mainer, born and raised. Lived in Portland and went camping in Rangeley growing up all those years and became a UMF student. Graduated with a degree in creative writing, left the area, and then decided to return back here because this is where I wanted to live and build my family. So I do live in Wilton as well. I would say the bulk of my career has been in nonprofit work and nonprofit leadership. Worked for about 12 years at UMF, working in the Alumni and Development Office. Recently changed careers to do web design and accessibility for University of Maine, Orono, in support of the UMaine system as a whole. I am the director of the board chair of the Wilton Free Public Library, support your libraries. And I have a small business that you could probably call it a nonprofit as well, building websites. I think if you are on social media as well, you probably know me best as the creator and moderator of the Farmington community Facebook page. It has about 12,000 members in it. I don't think we have 12,000 people in the Farmington area, but it's a very lively group. A lot of really interesting discussions that really come from people that you don't know anything about, because on social media you see a very small picture and you see all of their words and their feelings and their perspectives, and it's just been an honor to get to know the variety of people in our community, and looking forward to supporting you all. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Randy Hall. I live in Wilton also. I actually live in the village of East Dixfield. We own, my brother and I co-own a family farm over there. I'm 8th generation on our farm. We have a dairy farm. We have beef cattle. We do maple syrup. And my wife, Lori, and I also own Pineview Farm, and we have a herd of belted Galloway cattle. We show them nationally, and we've also sold our genetics worldwide. I'm president of the Franklin County Agricultural Society. Fire chief in East Dixfield, have been for 27 years and served on many different committees. I was on USDA committee for 9 years and just very involved with different things. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Greg Kimber, and I'm not great at speaking extemporaneously, so I've written some answers to the questions, so I hope you'll forgive me for going ahead and reading my responses. So I was born and raised in Temple. I'm a graduate from Mount Blue. I spent about 25 years away, mostly in Massachusetts, working as a caregiver in programs for developmentally disabled people or with kids in daycare centers, and then moving into teaching English as a second language. I moved back home to support my dad when my mom died a few years ago and ended up staying here. And he's dealing with some dementia now, so that's my focus at this point. I've always been politically engaged, especially on environmental issues, but since being here home, my engagement's been more local. And this is actually my 3rd time running for this House seat. I'm a Democrat, and the district leans pretty heavily Republican, so it's been a bit of a challenge. I've come up short the last 2 elections, and we'll see what happens this year. But regardless of the outcome, I feel it's important to give voters a choice. I'm proud to say I've received endorsements from AFL-CIO and SEI unions, the Maine Education Association, Planned Parenthood, and the LGBTQ advocacy group Equality Maine. And I missed the questionnaire for Maine conservation voters this year, but I was endorsed by them in my last 2 campaigns. So looking forward to the discussion, and thanks for having me.
Good evening. My name is Steve Bunker. I feel odd introducing myself to folks. I think I know most all of you, but from my door knocking, I found a few folks who was not aware of me or the legislative process or my public service. So I'll consider this a job interview, if you will. A resident of Farmington, with the exception of a few years, Uncle Sam sent me touring around the world, and a few years away at college. This has always been my home. I'm a proud product of the Maine Community College system, both in Southern Maine and then the University of Southern Maine, and then at UMO for my graduate degree. So I'm a big supporter of public education. A veteran of the military, 26 years in total between the Army and the Coast Guard, retiring as a lieutenant commander. I've worked in just about anything in the public safety field: police officer, deputy sheriff, volunteer EMT, 911 dispatcher, retired from state government where I helped put the state 911 system together. Most recently, I just completed 35 years on our Board of Selectmen, which was my absolute pleasure, many of those years as chairman. And I continue to serve my town in my 46th year as a volunteer firefighter. Just can't seem to get it out of my blood, if you will. I'm a community volunteer in just about every organization you can think of: the Elks Lodge, Rotary, American Legion, Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Business Association, Historical Society, Wilton Fish and Game, and I volunteer at the Travis Mills Veterans Retreat in Rome. And amongst my priorities are going to be the defense of women's rights, reducing electrical bills, helping combat high costs of pharmaceuticals, trying to do what I can to help farmers and foresters if I can, and bring a common sense idea in controlling gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Before we begin with the question set, I just want to note that the order that the questions are asked will be mixed up, or not the order, rather, the individual that they're being asked to. So, beginning with the first question. If elected, how will you work with the Franklin Chamber of Commerce? Please give at least 2 examples, beginning with Mr. Black.
Thank you. Well, I would continue to work on legislation that... Is that still on? Most of the time, people don't ask me to have a microphone. They can lose to hear me, but I realize we're in an auditorium. I would continue to work on legislation that affects our local businesses and our nonprofits. In the past, I've worked with Maine Chamber of Commerce on a lot of bills. They actively lobby and work bills at our committee levels. And Kennebec County Chamber of Commerce has also worked with us on bills affecting, in the past, on laws that affect their members. There is a lot of bills that come through the legislature that affect businesses and nonprofits. But in the 14 years of serving this area, I cannot recall Franklin County Chamber of Commerce ever contacting me on any legislation. I've worked closely with many of Franklin County Chamber of Commerce members, including the hospital. We've worked extensively. I've sponsored bills for the hospital. One of the last bills I did for them was Adolescent Psychic Care Center. We got that bill passed. There was a tremendous problem with adolescents remaining in our emergency rooms for long periods of time. I was a lead sponsor on that bill. We got it through DHHS. It is being bid out. The process is being bid out now, so we're hoping sometime in the near future to have a psychiatric care center. I've worked on a lot of bills with Poland Springs, taxation bills, and I've worked with the university and the college president. There's a lot of funding bills that come through in the legislation for the university system.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Thank you. I think when it comes to the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce, I have a couple of different ideas about it. I think the first portion of it is really supporting it at a local level in terms of there's a lot of great things that are happening at the Chamber right now. JP and I talked a little bit this afternoon about this. Online Chamber Bucks now, where you can have a gift card and use that to support downtown businesses. And a reminder to everybody with holiday shopping coming up, maybe think of shopping, shop downtown before you hop on Amazon and fill your cart. I'm very guilty of that, but this is a great time to reinvigorate our downtown. I think we rely on our downtown and we love it so much, but the only way to keep it around is by supporting it on a regular basis. So I think there's an element of sort of elevating the voice of what the chamber is trying to accomplish by using myself as a senator to build connections greater than what we're working with right here. I really also, the second portion is I want to be an advocate for Western Maine and business in Western Maine at that state level. We live in a fantastic area, and I think it's necessary that we have an advocate who can support the growth of the area at a sustainable, both from our town standpoint and from a green standpoint, a sustainable growth that helps us preserve our identity here while also maybe bringing in new opportunities as well.
Mr. Hall?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to echo a few of the things that Senator Black has said. After being down in legislature for the last 6 years, I've noticed that, like he said, the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce hasn't been real active, but I do see with some new leadership here now that they've got a lot of new good things going on. And I think one of the things that I really commend JP for is the breakfast that he have on a monthly basis, so that we can come and meet with different people that are, running the businesses and whatnot, find out their concerns, see what we can do to help them, and see what we can do to sponsor legislation for them. Another thing, too, is the amount of tourists that we have in this area. I think that we really need to expand upon that and help our business as these tourists come through. We need to capture some of that dollars, even if they go into Saddleback, Sugarloaf, whatever. Just right here in southern Franklin County, we need to expand upon that. So that's a couple of the things that I'd like to work on, and I really think that the Chamber of Commerce is headed in the right direction. We have, or in the past, worked a lot with the Maine Health, with the hospital and whatnot. I know they've been very active down in Augusta, and we've tried to support them in any way and shape that we can, and things seem to be going in the right direction. So thank you.
Mr. Kimber?
Well, I have to say I haven't dealt much with the Chamber of Commerce myself, so I still have a lot to learn about the role you all play in the county. But just recently, I've gotten involved with the Arts Farmington Board, and we hosted the Business After Hours event the Chamber sponsored a couple weeks ago. I thought that was a really nice event, and I appreciated the idea behind it of giving businesses an opportunity to showcase what they do and providing a setting for networking and sharing. I think we're lucky to have local businesses here that have real roots in the community and want to contribute positively. If I end up in the legislature, I'd certainly welcome getting input from the chamber on questions that come before us. And one of the areas I'm particularly interested in is in supporting businesses in the renewables and energy efficiency sectors. Also, recognizing that Maine's the oldest state in the nation, I'd like to see us investing in and supporting our home care and elder care workforce to make sure we have the resources to help our aging population.
Mr. Bunker?
Thank you. Only 2 examples. Let me see if I can fit them in. Number 1, how would I work? I'm proud to say I am working with them because I'm a member of the chamber itself and proud to be one. And I go to their meetings religiously with them. I very encouraged by their business after hours, their open house, their breakfasts, and listening and participating with the group, because that's how I hear what their needs and concerns are, and that gives me focus on what they would like. I would have to say I struggle a little bit to find whether or not they had an actual legislative agenda. If you go to the state chamber, they have some information on their website, but I think that's an area for growth for our local chamber. Third, one of my biggest pleasures is I'm volunteering with the chamber and is a part of one of the biggest single events that's going to come to Farmington, and that's in June in 2025 when we have the moose lottery at the fairgrounds. And I think that's going to bring in the largest single group of people that we've had in the town. I suspect over 5,000 people if we're lucky, and we want to try to promote that to be an annual event, not the moose drawing, but a celebration of all things outdoors and sporting. So I'm thrilled to do that. I've been watching real closely on the new Family Paid Medical Leave Act, which has two sides to that story. One on behalf of the persons who could make benefit from it, but also I'm concerned about the impact about businesses and employers on how that works for them, how their portions and contributions will come out of that. And then just lastly, as a representative and with the heart of the selectmen, if I get to go to the legislature, I'll always be watching closely for proposed legislation to see what effect it has on citizens and businesses and taxpayers, and we'll look carefully to see what the effect will be. Thank you.
Mr. Govin is next, and here is his answer. To be honest, I didn't know much about the Franklin Chamber of Commerce before being asked to take part in this discussion, so I did my research. I met with JP and had a long conversation with him, learning what the chamber does, its goals, and how it benefits the area. I was very impressed. Simply looking through their annual Welcome to Franklin County guidebook brought home to me the natural beauty, leisure activities, business diversity, and economic opportunities that exist in this region. It reminded me of why I have come to love this area. So, how would I work with a chamber if elected? First, as I had to educate myself about the chamber, I would want to help educate the businesses, professionals, and the general public of the value of such an organization and encourage involvement. I am a member of the Farmington Rotary Club and have already asked about getting JP to speak at the meeting next year. I have found out about the Business After Hours events and am interested in learning about and to supporting businesses individually. Next, as a member of the legislature, I need to look for different growth opportunities for fostering businesses. As an example, Maine's regulatory environment is the third worst in the nation. We need to review and limit unnecessary and burdensome regulations and restrictions. And we need to find ways to encourage economic investment in the state. We are now the fourth worst state in the nation for access to business capital. Another opportunity would be to reduce the corporate tax burden, which is the seventh highest in the nation. This would not only benefit Franklin County, but all of Maine.
On to question 2. As the only university in Western Maine, UMF plays a huge role as an employer and an economic multiplier in the region by contributing $30 million to the region each year. It has a long history of working with school districts to prepare and mentor young teachers. Providing school districts with quality teachers and retaining them has become a big problem in Maine, particularly in rural areas. What steps will you take to support the university? What resources might you be willing to secure to assist the university and the community in addressing this urgent need? Greg Kimber.
Well, thanks for the question. You mentioned how much UMF contributes financially to the economy in a dollar amount, but I'd also like to acknowledge how much having the university here enriches our community. The student body is great, and having the university in town adds so much to our culture. Shout out to the Sustainable Campus Coalition and how they interface with the community as one example. Having joined the RSU9 school board a couple of years ago, I'm acutely aware of the need for more teachers in our rural schools. In fact, at one of our last meetings, we were just discussing the shortage of special ed teachers in particular. I know the school district really values the ways in which UMF has been partnering with us on this, and we're so grateful for the students doing practicums in the district. I haven't mapped out specific new resources, but I can say I'm a fan of the Teach Maine initiatives that have been put in place by the current Department of Education. The scholarships that were made available to educators for summer courses this year is one example. Also, I was happy to read about the Mills Administration's Jobs and Recovery Plan grant that the UMF Early Childhood and Early Childhood Special Ed programs received this year to create teacher apprenticeship programs. So as a legislature, I'd be looking to support more investments along these lines.
Randy Hall next.
I'm not sure which way to pass the microphone here, so. Yes, this is a good question. There's no doubt, and I agree 100% with Greg on this one, that UMF really brings a lot to the community. As you come into town, you see the sign that says one of the best colleges in the country. One thing that I would like to see to help with our getting more teachers to stay in the state, one of the things that is done in other states as far as farm work is veterinarians. To get a veterinarian to come and work in your state, the state will pay for their tuition. And I believe that this could happen if we somehow, as a legislature, could get together and pay the tuition for these students once they graduate. If they'd stay in the state for 5 years, maybe 8 years or whatever, and teach here in the state of Maine, not only would that benefit us as a state to get more teachers, but actually if people get their roots in place here, they may stay longer. And I think that this is a program that really could be looked at. And as a legislature, I think probably we could make it work here in the state. And if something like this could work for teachers as it does in other states for veterinarians.
Okay, we have Randy Govin's answer is here, and I will read that out. First, let me tell you that I would not be here if it wasn't for UMF. My wife was a second-year special education major here when we got married, and we grew to love the area. We've been here almost 50 years. I value UMF as a nationally award-winning university and recognize its tremendous value to the region. I also recognize the challenges it faces. I'm impressed with President McDonald's understanding of these challenges and his plans to attract, prepare, and help retain students in education, as well as his goal to stabilize UMF financially. What can I do to support the university? First of all, I would want to help educate the local community as to what an asset the university is to the area, and not just assume this is a given. I respect and applaud the role of the Board of Visitors and encourage their continued involvement. I would also encourage collaborations with local economy and business community, such as the Chamber of Commerce and with the Farmington Hospital. I know of many people who have moved into the area because of the presence of UMF in the local community. Addressing issues such as affordable housing and childcare in rural areas will go a long way to help with teacher retention. Medicine has long had school loan assistance or forgiveness programs. Might this be worth studying both at the state level as well as locally? And that gives us over to Stephen Bunker.
Pass the baton. Here we go. First, I had to do a little education on how the university has actually funded itself to see what support that I could provide for them. And as you know, the UMF budget's bundled into an overall statewide presentation made by the state university chancellor that goes to the legislation itself as with input and support by the Board of Trustees themselves. So it's unlikely that I as a legislature might specifically entertain a particular LD only for the university, but there's ways to get around that themselves. If you would remember our own John Moore, who's a Board of Trustees appointee themselves, and have him help champion for us. Secondly, to call upon the UMF Board of Visitors, who are local stakeholders and champions, to wade in and support these with our legislation, with our legislators themselves. And I absolutely am thrilled and encouraged by our university president on his way to strengthen and outreach to local schools to help get teachers credentialed and to help ed techs to advance to the teaching role itself. It's absolutely in the right place. And also to mentoring existing new teachers who too often after 2 or 3 years leave the profession itself, which is a sad loss on us. I'm very encouraged by his expansion into health and psychology studies, two very much underappreciated and underserved areas themselves. Improvements in getting lab techs supervised, and professions for nurses, where we have a agreement with UMA. I'd love to see that a standalone here. Certainly, if we encourage the minimum entry salary for teachers as a state, that would encourage people to enter the profession and perhaps the university itself. It's a great idea in the handshake between the community colleges and the four-year institutions to get that easy transfer itself. I was a product of that, and I would appreciate it that it continued. Thank you.
Katie O'Donnell.
Thank you very much. UMF grad, class of 2007, this place, very near and dear to my heart. I was fundraising and working with alumni for about 12 years. That is a true labor of love and just my life's work. It was a pleasure. I believe that there's a couple facets to this question, of course. There's one part about the university and one part about education and teaching. Yes, UMF is known across the state as a teacher's college, but the university educates in a lot of other areas. President McDonald touched upon that on his introduction. I think that maybe UMF needs to be supported in changing that reputation out of changing the reputation away from the university is educating the people of our state. I think that the university serves an incredibly important purpose beyond just educating teachers. We serve as a rural engine for this area. The university should be treated as a public service, which is what it is, and as it should be. I think that the university needs more support from the state. I just think that it needs to be a much higher priority if we want to continue to ask young people to stay educated and stay in Maine. Universities need to be part of that. The other part, I think other folks have mentioned, teaching is not an attractive career right now. The salaries are extremely low. Average ed tech in Maine makes $19 an hour, which I think you can make at an overnight shift at Walmart. So I think that there can be some opportunities to leverage some sort of incentive from the state to encourage folks to stay teaching in Maine. Thank you.
And Russell Black.
Thank you. There's no question that the University of Maine Farmington is a huge economic driver in this community. I have worked with the University of Maine system to make sure that funding was adequate. Always could use more. I have supported the idea of, in my talks with President McDonald and our trustee, John Moore. I've had several conversations with them of perhaps changing some of our courses and getting some newer, different courses that are in demand now. There's no question that the University of Maine was known as the teaching college of the country, or the state. The other university campuses have siphoned off some of those teaching students. They are siphoning them off. So we now are not the premier. They can get them teaching education. So we need to change course. And I think the president has talked about that. He's talked with me that, we need other classes. I think we've reached out and started doing a veterans program, which will reach out to a whole new class. Randy and some of the other ones have talked about helping pay the tuition of people going into education. I think that we really should look at that, some way prorate it. The longer you stay teaching in Maine, the more of your tuition we would pay off, but I'm not for like what we did with the community college, though that was needed. I mean, we gave free tuition, unbiased free tuition to them. We can't afford to do that, but I think we could prorate it somehow. And of course, the community colleges have siphoned off, with that free education and tuition, have siphoned off some students for us. My time's up.
Number 3, how do you distinguish between government spending and investment? What are your guidelines or criteria supporting government programs that might help small businesses or nonprofits, but also cost the taxpayer money? Beginning with Mr. Bunker.
Thank you for that question. Investment suggests there's going to be a return or some kind of a gain on the end of that. And much of state government is spent on personal services or providing direct services to citizens. So it's not really the type of investment we're talking about. I think one of the best investments that are having a gain, I think, is in the funding of our tuition-free community college. I don't call it siphoning off. I call it as a feeder into the four-year university themselves, and it's actually creating a whole new category of students that our current president is nurturing to do. Secondly, investments to support our high school age voc tech centers. Generating young people and getting an interest in skilled trades is an absolute boom itself. Recently, I was at the Maine Municipal Association annual conference. I came across the Workforce Professional Development Program that the community colleges are doing, that are giving short-term courses on basic life support, certified pharmacy techs, land surveyors, man techs at BIW, welding, fiber optics, high pressure boilers, and the list go on. That is an absolute investment and a great return on that. Rather than expanding state employees and state bureaus, I'd consider contracting some services to nonprofit groups to deliver such services, like the Community Action Agency that's been around us for so long. And then finally, I would refer you to referendum question number 2, which provides $25 million to provide funds to help in the targeted sector for life science, biotechnology, information technology, technology for forestry and agriculture, marine technology, and composite materials and manufacturing. This is going to generate skilled employees and help agencies pick up the latest in technology, thrive and prosper, and hire good people and give them good wages. Thank you.
Mr. Govin is next. A great example of this would be roads infrastructure, something I've heard a lot about going door to door this summer. Government spending would be fixing the potholes or even laying a skim coat of asphalt on rural road. An investment would be to look to the future and allocate resources to improve the road to allow extended use or a longer life. Bad roads directly impact businesses that rely on products coming into the area or products being shipped out. How bad is it? Maine's infrastructure in general ranks as the second worst in the country, with a grade of C-. We need to address other issues: decaying bridges, crumbling schools, spotty internet access, lack of housing. These needed investments are hurt by inflation and by government overspending, making them more expensive than years ago. Next is Mr. Black.
Okay, which question we are on? Three, still on 3. Number 3 is a kind of a tough question. I would say investment in our schools, bridges, roads are definitely investments. Spending money on day-to-day operation of the state government and new programs would be government spending. There is much overlaying between, question 2. The state legislature and administration has overspent for years, and Right now, we're looking at the state revenue sharing forecast for the next budget, which is the 25 to 26 budget, is looking at nearly $1 billion deficit. So that's going to curtail what we're able to do in the next budget, and it's also going to probably, affect what we do with some of the existing programs that we have started in the last few years, and there's probably going to be some cuts needed. The administration has set aside over $1 billion in rainy day. That might get us through the next budget, but the shortfalls are coming, and the revenue sharing shows that it's going to be quite substantial.
Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you. When I'm thinking about the differences between government spending and investment, as others have said, a lot of the government spending relies on how we are keeping our state operational. When I think about this flooding that we experienced last year in Jay, taking roads out and needing to fix the infrastructure there, absolutely necessary. When it comes to investing back into the state, I think about opportunity and sort of the opportunity cost of not investing in certain areas. It was interesting. We all know about high-speed internet and how that is a priority. Charlie Woodworth doing great work. Town of Vienna doing great work with bringing high-speed internet here. Excellent example of investment because of the opportunity to invite businesses and other organizations to begin to build their life here. I actually had a constituent the other day say that they were reading about data storage, that companies that store data are looking for opportunities to build in colder weather climates because it helps support the technology beyond to support that. It's obviously better to store a whole bunch of data in Maine where it's cool as opposed to in Texas. So I think that anytime we have a chance to kind of explore what could be, and with accountability and with proper planning, with benchmarks along the way, I think that we can find ways to balance that government spending that is necessary in addition to investing in things that we can't let get too far behind.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you. I believe that many of the candidates have touched on a lot of different things here. The government spending versus investments. My feeling is lots of times government spending goes towards social programs, and I'm not against social programs. What I am against is the social programs that people feel that they can use to make a living on. They aren't necessarily set up for that. An investment would be to invest in these people so that they can go to work. There are so many small businesses and nonprofits and stuff that are looking for workers nowadays. And almost every store you go into, there's a sign up that says help wanted. But yet there are still a lot of people that I call living off the system. And I really think that needs to be addressed somehow to get these people to work. I've always was brought up to work, and I know most people in my generation, have had jobs and worked their whole lifetime. And, to see these young people that say, well, I'm not going to work for minimum wage. Well, guess what? We all started at minimum wage. And minimum wage is not something that you is set up to make a living on. Minimum wage is a starting wage where you can actually go out and learn your work skills. And my feeling is if you are worth more money, you're going to get paid more money. So there's always that chance for advancement. So that's my feelings between the government spending versus an investment. We need to invest in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Kimber.
Well, I guess I think I've taken a kind of a bigger picture angle with my response here. I guess government spending is kind of, if you don't get something, I guess, out of it. I mean, investment by definition provides a return, at least if it's a good one. And government spending can be an investment, but if you're not getting a return, then people are going to badmouth it and say it's government spending. But my feeling is that the return on a good investment is not always measured in dollars. Investing in our health, in education, and protecting our environment, these are worthwhile investments in and of themselves. And the good news is that these kind of investments almost always provide downstream economic benefits that more than pay for themselves. The kind of one kind of government quote investment that I don't think provides a return to taxpayers and their communities is big tax breaks for the very wealthy on the revenue side. That's not spending, but it's the flip side. So I'm skeptical of the idea of giving big tax breaks to the wealthy. And the only other thing I'd add is that it's important for governments to be fiscally responsible, and you won't be able to keep making good investments if your financial footing is not sound and the community that provides your tax base is not healthy and prosperous.
Moving on to question 4. A lot of elected officials take the time to say they are not. A lot of elected officials take the time to say that they are not a politician. Do you accept the title of politician, and what aspects of your service might help to restore trust in government? Mrs. O'Donnell, you are first.
Thank you. I'm a politician now. This is my first race. I'm very pleased to be entering this world. A politician is a diplomat and somebody who wants to take many voices and bring things together and work toward a common good. To me, that's right up my alley. That's what I'm looking for, and that's what I believe all of us at this table are trying to do. We all sort of have the same belief in the growth of the state, growth of our hometowns and our region, and I think my own experience in collaboration and bringing people together, this Facebook group, if you're not on Facebook and you're not in the group, let me explain. Lots of very vibrant conversation, and I'm sort of in charge of moderating that, and that means figuring out when somebody is joining the conversation and disagreeing because they have intentions of getting some shared understanding, and when somebody might just be being antagonistic. And there's a very clear difference between the two, and I think it's important that all of these voices are heard when we are working toward that common goal. And as a politician or a diplomat, that would be my goal, is to hear from all of the different voices and understand why people feel differently. And I am thrilled to take that on and would be honored to do that.
Mr. Black.
As I said earlier, I always consider myself just an old farmer from Wilton, but I guess I have to rethink that, when you use the term politician. I always thought of a politician as being full-time. We as politicians in Augusta are citizen politicians, and we aren't really full-time, but it is a 24/7 job if you do the job correctly. And my cell phone and email is out there. I've had calls at 3 o'clock in the morning on a weekend, and I think some of the other legislators in the room would say that's the same thing. So I guess if you look at the dictionary says someone who is active in government, usually as an elected official, is a politician. So I guess I qualify as a politician, though I kind of try to shed that title if I can. As I said earlier, I have tried to be available 24/7. I have tried to listen to all sides of the issue, and my email and cell number is out there and everywhere. In the 14 years I've been out in state government, too many people have it. So,
Mr. Kimber.
Well, whether or not I'm a politician, I guess I would say no, I'm not. But I guess I'm being self-deprecating. I think it's just because I don't really qualify for the label. I'm really just a guy who lives here in the community and wants to be a voice for compassion and common sense. And I haven't won office yet, so I'm really still an outsider to the process. So for the time being, I'm just another constituent, and the most I can do is pester Representative Hall on his votes. But I would like to say that I don't think politician should be a dirty word. I think the majority of people get into politics because they want to help their communities, even if they may have vastly different visions for how to do that. And the fact is, when government works well, it can really help people. I'm afraid partisanship can lead to some politicians to block or obscure those successes, but I'm hopeful that the more we can come together to work on effective evidence-based solutions, the more we'll be able to restore trust in government.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you. I guess I would be the first one to say that I'm not a politician, but after hearing, I definitely am. My experience in Augusta has been to try to help bring people together. I've also tried to answer all my emails, telephone calls. As Senator Black has said, it's nothing to have a phone call at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they may go on for half an hour or so just because they have interests, and we have to answer those people. I mean, that's what our job is to listen to people, understand their problems, and see what we can do to help. And that's been my ultimate goal, is to try to restore the trust in people by helping them out. If anyone has a problem, and I don't care who it is, whether they're in my district or another district. I've got a friend of mine that actually lives over in Freiburg. It has a camp down at Camp Ellis, and I've been working with him on trying to get some situations solved. And I just think that that's something as a legislator you need to do, is try to help people out, because that's what you're elected for.
And we have Mr. Govin's answer right here. He says, of course, elected officials are politicians, or at least should be. Although that title has taken on an unpopular connotation, the qualities of effective political leadership include courage, strength, the ability to communicate effectively, knowledge, judgment, integrity, and interpersonal skills. A particularly important quality is long-term vision, along with the power to implement that vision. I particularly like the philosophy of servant leadership that prioritizes the needs of others over one's own interests. Servant leaders empower others, listen to their input, create a sense of community, and include qualities of empathy, building partnerships, and behaving ethically. Following these principles would go a long way in restoring trust in government. And Mr. Bunker.
I agree with Mr. Govin on those qualities. Matter of fact, he found the same quote I did as we did our research, so I will skip that. But I've got a classic definition of what a politician should be. This was a presentation made in 1920 when we brought a life-size example of Abraham Lincoln to Great Britain to help talk about binding our two countries back together. Politics is a practical exercise of the art of self-government, and somebody must attend to it if we are to have self-government. Somebody must study it, learn the art, exercise patience and sympathy and skills to bring the multitude of opinions and wishes of self-governing people into such an order that some prevailing opinion can be expressed and peacefully accepted. Otherwise, confusion will result in dictatorship or anarchy. The principal ground of reproach against any American citizen should be that he is not a politician. Everybody ought to be as Lincoln was. As an example, I would say in my 35 years on the select board, and many of it as a chair themselves, I will have to reflect on how challenging it was with 5 very different personalities and views to try to gain consensus on that. And it takes patience and careful listening, and allowing folks to have an expression of their opinions, a bit of a sense of humor at times to make that work. But balanced budgets was the routine that we came to, and most of our votes were often 5-0. And my last challenge in the earliest days of 911, when I reviewed our system in Maine, we had over 90 24-hour dispatch centers by towns and counties and state, and they all wanted it just the way it was always been. So that took quite a degree of patience and understanding and perseverance to get them to consider the values of consolidation down for the best interest of all and the best cost relatedness of those. Thank you.
Question 5. Being an effective senator or representative requires collaborating and compromising with those on the other side of the aisle to get things accomplished. What in your past experiences has prepared you for this role? Beginning with Mr. Hall.
Well, thank you for that question. I'm going to use an example, and it has nothing to do with legislature, but it has everything to do with my past experiences. I've been fire chief in our village for 27 years. This has brought many challenges to bring people together. See, East Dixfield is a village that lies in two towns, the town of Wilton and the town of Dixfield. And over the past years, I've brought the two towns together 3 different times. In 2000, to build a new fire station. In 2011, to purchase a new fire truck. And again in 2024, to purchase another new fire truck. This has been a lot of challenges to do something like this, because not only are you dealing with one town, you're dealing with 2 towns. That means 2 select boards and 2 town managers. And it takes a lot of work to get that number of people to all agree upon different things. And I feel that this experience has really helped me, especially when I've got down in Augusta, to work with people on the other side of the aisle as far as different things in our committee. The lead on the Agricultural Conservation and Forestry Committee, and lots of times we don't always agree with people on the other side of the aisle, but I think my past experiences that I've just mentioned here has helped work out, and we've come to some pretty good conclusions down there. So thank you.
Mr. Kimber.
The first thing that comes to mind is my experience the last couple of years on the school board. There's generally a lot of agreement, and I think it helps that the board membership is nonpartisan. But discussion on certain topics does come up, and for me, it's always good to hear people raise different points of view. I also mentioned that I worked in daycare centers with little kids for a number of years. So this is a kind of tongue-in-cheek example, but kids can be pretty headstrong sometimes. So I think working in that setting does actually give you some practice in meeting people where they're at and collaborating to find solutions that work for everybody. I feel like the most important thing is to see people you're working with as friends and not as adversaries, to have humility and respect, and not to take yourself too seriously.
Mr. Bunker.
You've caught me off guard. My question 5 is presented to me earlier versus what was handed this evening are two different ones. But as I mentioned in my previous question itself, collaboration is not a dirty word itself, and it takes strong leadership to be able to convince people rather than work in a silo and try to come out with only their way, to try to see them that it's better to have a consensus building and a compromise that brings to success rather than having the type of loggerheads that we see, if not at the state level, certainly at the national level themselves, where we are so absolutely prioritized on those issues. I'm a researcher, and I love to have discussions with folks to figure out what their opinions and personal experiences have been and try to draw from them to see if we can find middle ground to bring about success themselves and move the public policy forward. Thank you.
Mr. Govin is next. His answer is as follows. I have spent my whole professional career looking at problems. I have learned the best way to address an issue is to objectively weigh all sides, ask for and respect opinions of others involved, share my insights, and then not to be afraid to act on what I feel is best course to take. I try not to make any snap decisions. I rely on a strong dose of common sense, both for myself and to learn from others on the realities of an issue. Collaboration with others is essential. Some compromise is necessary to finalizing details. Compromising principles and ethics is not. This approach has done me well for 40 years. Next is Mr. Black.
In Augusta, I have the reputation of working with both parties on good legislation. And being in a minority party, if you want to get legislation passed, you got to have a good relationship with the other side and have people that you can go to and get things done. You know, you have to work with both sides. I have, you know, been criticized in the past in some of my earlier terms of being too bipartisan. I've taken some heat from my own party, but you know, there again, as I said, if you want to get good legislation passed, you have to work with the other side. And I have also been sought out on numerous bills from the other side to help sponsor and to get my side of the aisle to support certain legislation that sometimes they aren't as keen on supporting. So I have a reputation in Augusta as being a bipartisan politician. Did I use that word?
I think so.
And Mrs. O'Donnell.
All right, bear with me with this. Creative writing major at UMF. You're 19 years old and you're in your first writer's workshop. And have you never had that pleasure of being in a writer's workshop? It means that you've stayed up all week working on something that you absolutely love and you think is the best thing in the world, and you present it to all of your classmates, and then you sit silently while they have a discussion about it. If you do that once or twice, you learn very quickly that you can't have an ego to be successful. Taking in other people's criticisms and reactions is only going to make your work better and get you closer to whatever goal you're looking for. If I have a $1,000 idea that I'm really excited about, and someone from the other side says, well, here's all the reasons that it's gonna fail, I'm not gonna be mad at them. I'm gonna be really happy because I'm gonna keep my $1,000. So I think there's this level of people talking about competition across the aisle and who's your adversary. If you're working toward the same goal, you might have different avenues of getting there, but taking in that information and working together to come with a solution is the only way to get to your destination, sort of by seeing it from all sides. So I think it is absolutely essential to do, and something that I do on a regular basis. Thank you.
Question 6. What is your process for educating yourself about issues and decisions that you have to make? What do you use for resources to make sure your decisions are informed choices and not strictly ideological based? Provide examples if possible. Mr. Govan is up first. His answer is as follows. As I mentioned before, I will use as many resources as I can to educate myself on issues. I find that the news media, both right and left-leaning, is a poor measure of what the truth is about an issue, and both always put their own spin on the presentation of a story. Trying to keep emotions out of decisions is the goal, but this is increasingly difficult to do. Social and news media thrive on getting their audiences riled up. A good example of this was the proposal from the Maine Board of Environmental Protection last March that would have required 51% of all new vehicles sold by 2028 and 82% by 2032 to be all electric. I spent many hours researching the issue and even more reviewing hundreds of comments from the public who wrote to the board. I determined that this mandate was an ill-conceived idea for several reasons. Electric vehicles are too expensive for the average Maine consumer, that there was not adequate charging infrastructure to support the decision, the distance that electric vehicles travel on a single charge is limited, how cold weather could seriously affect performance, and most importantly, there was no groundswell of support by consumers or by the automobile industry, who were already having trouble selling their existing electric vehicle inventory. In a pure ideological-based choice, the climate control advocates would have trumped common sense. Luckily, this mandate failed. Mr. Bunker.
Thank you. One of the advantages that I've had over the decades in being involved in so many different community organizations and groups It gives me a great opportunity to have exchange with these persons and listen to their points of views, their life's experiences, and their ideas. So I'm very comfortable in using stakeholder groups and listening sessions and surveys to gather input and opinions and possible options that I may never have thought of. I try to remain to be a willing listener and a learner. I often seek out those who have faced this very same issue, figure out how they resolved it and the lessons they learned, right or wrong, and make sure I duplicate the best and avoid the others. I'd rather repeat somebody's successful story than generate a failure of my own. I found out in many topics there are subject matter experts and consultants out there that have advanced knowledge, university systems and their professors and staff that we can draw upon those folks. Resources like the Greater Franklin Development Corporation, a huge resource for many facets that I can draw on only at the request of asking them. An example I would use, we were the last state in the nation to implement 911 dialing, but I had easy access to every other successful state program, and I borrowed on their successes, followed their best practices, and came out to be the last but the best program across the country themselves. My personal campaign on reducing cancer in firefighters, the #1 killer themselves. I found out there are other programs. I talked with doctors and researchers, national federations and foundations on cancer to find the best and brightest of information. I'm not shy on researching and finding the right answers. Thanks.
Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you so much. Educating yourself on issues, of course, as lots of these folks have said, doing your own research, unbiased research, looking for case studies and other elements of times when other areas have successfully or unsuccessfully accomplished a task, for sure. In addition to that, listening to our people, listening to the people who are actually impacted by whatever is happening, whatever you're researching, people in support, people who are opposed, of course, all of those voices. Additionally, at the end of the day, I really want to focus on who the experts are in these areas. At the Wilton Library Board meeting last couple Wednesdays ago, we were discussing that we had water seeping into the library, which is obviously a terrible thing to happen in a library. And I certainly would not be the one to fix it. But we know that Ben Cunningham can come by later this month and do his construction work to see, I'm going to get this wrong because I'm not even the expert on it, and move the water, change the formation of where the water is going, etc. Same with my taxes. I don't do my taxes. I call Jamie Knox at H&R Block, and she does a fantastic job. I believe in trusting our experts. I believe in science. I believe in data, and that's sort of where you begin, and then build up your opinions based on the data that you've collected.
Mr. Black.
Well, before I vote on any piece of legislation, I try to get as much information as possible. Now, I think last session we had well over 2,000 bills. I'm not sure if it reached, originally it was around 2,400. So that's a lot of bills to go through in a 2-year period. And of course, they get amended and changed. So it's quite a job to keep up with them. But when they come to the floor and we have to vote on them, by that time, I have talked to the sponsors of the bills. I have talked to those people who would be affected by the bill. And of course, in Augusta, you can't forget the lobbyists on both sides. They're in the halls and in the committee rooms, and they have, either side has perspective that you have to weigh out. And of course, then you have the committee reports and testimonies that are there from the public. And you have to weigh that all in. And when it's all done and everything is, you get ready to vote, you have to vote, I feel, the way that you think your constituents in your area would want you to vote. And that's how I've based my votes over the years, is what is best for Franklin County and what's best for the constituents that I represent.
Mr. Kimber.
To educate myself on the issues, I try to turn to trusted sources that have expertise in the relevant area and/or a record of honest reporting. It's distressing to me that there's so much faulty information out there. And what's more concerning still is that much of the faulty information isn't just the result of a tilted perspective based on certain ideological framing. It's often based on outright lies and intentional disinformation. I believe it's vitally important that we operate on fact-based reality. That said, I don't necessarily see a problem with being exposed to a diversity of perspectives and ideologies. In fact, I think it can be a really useful way to challenge our assumptions. I'm old enough at this point that I found myself more than a few times having to reevaluate conclusions that I'd come to. Just the latest example relates to question 1 coming up on this November's ballot. It's the question about limiting the amount of money that can be given to super PACs. It's an issue I'm deeply concerned about, and people working on it have done good work on the previous initiatives. So I was excited to vote for it, but before I did, I looked to see what position Maine Citizens for Clean Elections was taking on it. They have a great track record of advocating on these issues, so the fact that they raised concerns about the legal strategy behind the initiative, while being fully in support of the ultimate goal, made me step back and rethink my vote.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you. I'd like to say that Senator Black has stole my answer. I wish I had gone first. But anyway, I totally agree with him. There's so much legislation that comes through Augusta. Like he said, over 2,000 bills just last year. And the thing of it is that, you know, you like to say you can educate yourself on each and every one of them, but you just don't have that amount of time. So the way I do things is I read my emails, I listen to my constituents, because most everybody knows that they can get a hold of me, they can call me with their concerns, they can also email me. But also, when we go to a committee meeting, there are people that come, they testify in favor, people testify against, or not for or against. And you need to weigh all that information, and there's a lot of facts that come through there. And after you hear the people talk, you can also go out in the hallway and you can talk with them some more and get some more in-depth information. And that's how I weigh my facts and my votes. And I have to stop and think about, you know, how's it going to affect the people in my district? Those are the people that I'm there to represent. And if it's going to make, you know, a big decision for them, then that's what I'm out for, is I'm down there to represent my people in my district. So that's how I weigh my votes.
Just a reminder, we will be moving over questions 7 and 9 and going straight to 8. So here's the final question. What is a specific challenge that faces Franklin County that is unique compared to other counties in the state? What levels of government would you suggest, what levers, of government would you suggest using to address this challenge? Beginning with Mr. Black.
Well, I'm not sure that Franklin County has too many unique situations compared to the other counties. I do know that we need to, a couple of things that we've talked here tonight about was that we need to make sure that we have a vibrant University of Maine Farmington, that we keep that. It's, we have a lot of trustees around the state that probably wouldn't, care whether University of Maine Farmington was here or not. And we're fortunate we have a local trustee, and I think we need more rural trustees on the board of the University of Maine system. We're very fortunate in Franklin County that we have a hospital, one of the largest employees in the area. And over the years, I've had communications with them where there was possibility of the hospital closing, and when they get bought up by, the bigger hospitals in Portland and whatever. But we have a good staff, we have a good administration here, and we're doing well in the hospital over here now. We're getting in physicians that we need so that all of our patients aren't going to Portland and other places for surgery and whatever. So those two things right there are huge. Housing, I'm not sure if the housing issue for us is as great as it is in some other areas, but one thing that has seen a lot of pressure since COVID is getting land access. And we're seeing land bought up all through rural Franklin County that we could lose access to. So that's why I've supported Lands for Maine Future and High Peaks Alliance and things like that conserve land and access for our tourism, our hunters and whatever. My time's up.
Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you. I completely echo a lot of what Senator Black has said, especially about the university and our hospital. We are very lucky to have both of those organizations in sort of the spot we are in, which is we're pretty rural, but we're not completely rural. We have this wonderful, vibrant downtown that is important to the people who live here. We are not just a tourist destination. This is where we all live and where we want to thrive. We are in the foothills of major outdoor recreation, but we are not at Sugarloaf's, doorstep. So I think there are some interesting challenges there where we are a unique area. When I think about some areas that I think are unique that we should be working on improving. One of the things that comes to mind is transportation. It's really hard to get in and out of Farmington unless you have a car. Bus services is practically non-existent. We do have Western Maine transportation, which is fabulous, but I worry about walkability, and I worry about these things because they are elements that prevent people from coming and moving in and becoming members of our community. So that's the kind of thing I think about, where we are just kind of in a funky little spot where we're a little bit of everything. And I think when we make decisions about our area, we have to consider a lot of different sides to it and how it's going to impact our community. Thanks.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you. I think one of the things that is unique here about Franklin County is we are such a rural area. One of the issues that we have is we've lost so many jobs over the years. We've just had the closing of the IP Verso paper in Jay. Over the years, we've lost our shoe industry, and it's caused issues as people have had to move away, and we need to see what we can do to bring jobs back to the area. We are a rural area, and people have to travel to go to Augusta or Auburn to do shopping for major things, and I really think that this is an issue that we need to look at to try to bring more stuff back to our local area. And we are very fortunate to have the hospital and the university system here, but I think we need to expand upon some of those things and see what we can do to build this area up.
Mr. Kimber.
Thanks, and those are all great responses. I can't say, like Russell said, I can't say that I can think of a challenge that's really uniquely specific to Franklin County. But I mentioned earlier the issue of Maine's aging population, which I believe is more acute here in the rural parts of the state. This hits home for me because of my family's circumstance, and as I see the cohort of my parents' generation getting older. It's also in my wheelhouse because I've been involved with child care, informal elder care now, and helping people with disabilities. This is important work that's often undervalued. There's already a shortage of elder care workers in Maine, with an estimated 2,300 additional workers needed to serve just the people who have already been approved for help. And the demand will surely rise with the number of Mainers over 65 projected to hit 29% by 2050. Keeping wages in the field at an average of almost $2 less than comparable entry-level jobs is not a recipe for attracting more workers. Vice President Harris put forward a proposal to deal with the issue at the federal level, which makes sense because it's really a nationwide concern. But here in the state, the Long-Term Care Workforce Commission, which was put together in 2019, has been looking into it as well. The state's already taken the steps of raising Maine Care reimbursement rates, and this, along with bonuses provided via the American Rescue Plan, reduced turnover to some degree, though wages are still not competitive. Other currently existing initiatives, like giving reimbursements to family caregivers and establishing an advisory council to improve working conditions, could be followed up on and expanded. in this case, as in so many, it makes sense to bring experienced people together to research the problem and identify and craft workable solutions.
Mr. Bunker?
Thank you. As I understand the question, we're looking at specific challenges and what levels of government would we use to help address the issue. I would agree with the others. I'm not sure if Franklin County is particularly unique, but we do have some major challenges, and they've been identified. We're very rural. It's long distances between service delivery. We've got a small population. We've got an aging population, and to be able to deliver services that are provided in both an effective and efficient manner is tough to do, given the numbers that we have. And these are in addition to all of the challenges, all the economic challenges we have. But I'm going to draw a little bit of a cold, hard reality on you and to give a specific example, and I think Randy can agree with me on these. I think one of our biggest issues facing us at the moment is sufficient fire protection, particularly in our small and rural towns. If there's a weekday, daytime fire when everybody is at work out of town, we're lucky to get an engine on the scene within the right amount of time. We have delayed response. When we used to be able to put a fire out with our own department or maybe our next door neighbor, that was good. Now it's not unusual to have 5, 6 or more departments all try to fight the fire, with trucks arriving with maybe 1 or 2 firemen in each of the apparatus themselves. It's simply a threat to life and property. And I'm sad to say it's only going to be a matter of time, and you can quote me on this one. Who would need to be involved? If I were facilitating this group, it certainly takes town selectmen and town managers, fire chiefs, the state fire marshal's office, the fire insurance carriers, the Maine Fire Service Institute, who trains firefighters. Here's a dirty word: county government as a resource to pull all of these together, the State Fire Commission, certainly the Legislative Committee on Criminal Justice and Public Safety, and others. There's a need for cooperation, collaboration, or perhaps consolidation, and perhaps something as introspective as regional fire districts. Thank you.
Mr. Govin's answer will close out this question. An important challenge to Franklin County is the influx of people moving into the region from out of the area. Franklin County has one of the highest number of houses or properties sold in the state in the last year, sometimes bought sight unseen at high prices. This was originally a phenomena at Sugarloaf and Rangeley, but now is seen all over the county. This was made worse by COVID, when people wanted to leave big cities and found they could live in a small town like Phillips, for example, and work online. This results in housing being more expensive and harder to find. Simplifying regulatory building requirements and permits, encouraging building projects, and even supporting construction VOTEC training at the local and regional level would help.
All right, and we will be moving on to just the final closing remarks from our legislators, candidates. Mr. Kimber is first.
Well, I don't have too much to add. I just want to thank the Chamber and the University again for hosting us, and thanks everybody else on the panel for a good discussion. This is a good format for getting to know the candidates. You can get a feeling for who we are personally, but I'd urge everyone, when you're deciding who you're going to vote for at whatever level, to take the time to find out where the candidates stand on the issues. Take the time to look at your candidate's track record, look up their voting history. There are a lot of good organizations out there that help make that information accessible. I really appreciate everyone who came out and took the time to listen to what we all had to say. Thank you so much for being engaged, and thank you for getting out to vote. Election's November 5th, and we've already got absentee ballots available.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you, and thank you all for coming tonight. I know we all have a very busy schedule, and I really appreciate seeing a good audience. I spoke with Mr. Bunker before we got started, and I said, wow, I'm really impressed. I said, I didn't expect to see more than a dozen people here, so this is pretty good. I do think this is great that we could come together and voice our opinions and let people know a little bit about how we stand on different issues. and I hope that you'll all get a chance to get out and vote, and thank you for coming.
Mr. Govan unfortunately did not seem to send his final remarks, so we'll be moving on to Mr. Bunker.
I share my thanks for everybody who's being here tonight and those that are watching on Mount Blue TV. That's a great resource for our region to have. And my position is this takes someone who has direct working experience as a representation of the public and a knowledge of the legislative process, and I have both of those. I personally regret that the issue of women's rights has become such a polarizing issue in Maine and nationally, and sadly it's become an obstacle to discussions across the aisle on other additionally important issues. Regardless of my personal values that I hold on the issue, I must reiterate my defense against allowing legislators, attorneys, and the courts to inject themselves into what should be a personal and private discussion between women and their doctors. If elected, I'm going to welcome the opportunity to work across the aisles and find common ground and consensus and get things moving and get legislation as enacted. I would encourage folks to vote yes on referendum number 1 to get PAC money out of politics. This is the most, I'm amazed that this is the most expensive run for a House seat in Maine, in the little state of Maine, in Farmington, in Chesterfield, as opposed to what's going on nationally. It is crazy, tens of thousands of dollars coming in from out of state to influence what should be local decision making. But in closing, I would say thank you on this and let folks know, regardless of how the vote comes out, I've always been there for you and I always will. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Donnell.
Yeah, absolutely echoing this. Thank you to all of you who are here, folks who are on Mount Blue TV. It's an honor to sit with all of you at this table and discuss this place that we love so much and have this conversation. The reason why I decided to run for Senate, I have friends who are my age. They've got 2 little kids. They work full time. They want to be here and they're struggling. And there are a lot of people around us who are struggling. I believe that if you love Farmington, if you love Franklin County, if you love Western Maine, you should be able to live here from when you are born at Franklin Memorial Hospital all the way until your end of life. And I know that that's a very large challenge to be facing, and I know all of us want to work to make that a reality for each of us, and it's a challenge that I'm really looking forward to taking on should you vote for me to be your Senate representative. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, and I'll pass it along to Mr. Black.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight. You know, it's tough to get audiences like this out. I mean, everybody's so busy. And but I will say, in Augusta, we're facing some big issues. The labor shortage, high taxes, high electrical costs. I continually have constituents and businesses calling me about the high electrical costs, and you know, it's really hurting our businesses and our senior citizens. And then, of course, the revenue forecast of nearly $1 billion of shortfall coming up in the next biennium budget process. It's going to take experienced leaders to handle what is coming. In the 14 years that I have been in Augusta, I have proved that I'm up to that task, and I have sponsored many bills that have passed. Just a couple of them is the Land for Maine Future bill that affects some of our rural areas, was a $40 million bond bill. I was the lead co-sponsor on that. On a referendum ballot this coming election, the $30 million trail bill, I'm the lead co-sponsor on that bill. I was sought out on both those bills to bring bipartisanship on board. And so those bills are both substantial bills for Franklin County and our tourism. I am prepared to go back to Augusta and help fix the problems this state is facing and would appreciate your vote. Thank you for coming tonight.
This will conclude our forum. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you guys for your poise and your integrity and your respect. Candidates, please stick around to talk with constituents. Have a great night. Thank you.